Hey everyone, Dr. Josh Axe here. Today we're going to be diving into a critical topic, the symptoms of heavy metal toxicity and how these toxins can silently affect your health. There are so many people being affected by heavy metals and they don't realize it. One of the things I've done over the years as a functional medicine and regenerative medicine provider is done heavy metal testing with patients, especially when patients are coming in with issues like brain fog, chronic fatigue, digestive issues, hormone imbalances, and other types of infections. Heavy metals are often at the root of these neurological and immune-based symptoms. And it would probably surprise you, or maybe not surprise you, that there is a condition today that has recently been linked with heavy metal toxicity, and that is autism and autistic spectrum disorders. And it's been shown in a recent study that heavy metals likely contribute to autism, as well as autoimmune disease, dementia, and neurological illness. Now, I want you to stick around because I'm going to get into practical tips of how to detox your body of heavy metals, and I'm going to unveil the biggest exposures to heavy metals that you're going to want to stay away from. Before I dive in though, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single thing. So a groundbreaking study published in the medical journal Nature Communications sheds light on the link between heavy metal exposure and autism risk. Now, what researchers did in this study is they took twins, and twins are really great in studies because you're sort of removing a lot of the sort of environmental and genetic components and a lot of things that could throw the study off. And so they looked at the twins, and in some cases, one twin had autism and the other twin did not. And they researched the baby teeth of these infants. And they found that the children that had higher levels of heavy metals in their teeth, like lead and mercury, lead specifically, and had lower levels of zinc and manganese, those kids had a greater likelihood, much greater likelihood of having autism. And the findings revealed that children with autism, as we mentioned, had higher lead after birth. And the reason why zinc and manganese levels were low is those are two minerals responsible for heavy metal detoxification. Now, also in the study, they found that those children diagnosed with ASD had levels of heavy metals that were 1.5 times higher than their non-ASD co-twins. And this was particularly looked at around 15 weeks post-birth. And as I mentioned earlier with these minerals, it's really interesting that manganese levels were much lower, in fact, 250% lower in the ASD cases, so the children with autism. And they also found zinc to be lower in almost every case as well, around close to 30% lower in those kids. And so, it's, again, this is very interesting when you look at again, this study done on twins, it really helps reveal, and it really, let me just say this, this is one of the best studies ever done on the cause of autism, the root cause. We see toxicity is a major cause of autism, and these one child accumulating heavy metals within the body, especially lead, and also having nutritional deficiencies of things like zinc and manganese. And the research highlights how environmental exposure, even before birth, even when in the womb, could play a role with autism risk. And this is why, if you're a parent, you want to do everything to decrease your exposure to heavy metals. You want to do everything you can to decrease your children's exposure. And I've talked about epigenetics a lot on the show and how the health of the mom affects so much what's going on within the child. You know, one of the things that we did with my mom, as an example of this, my mom had about 12 amalgam, those silver fillings in her mouth, and she was diagnosed with cancer. We went through a process of getting those fillings removed because we know that toxins and heavy metals increase your risk of nearly every health condition you can think of, everything from cancer to neurological illness, and of course, children delaying their development, increasing the risk of autism and causing major nutritional deficiencies. And so, you know, if you're a parent out there and you have toxic exposure, or you have silver fillings in your mouth, or you're drinking water with fluoride and taking a lot of medications, these sort of things that cause toxicity, you want to do everything you can to remove the exposure and to also take the right nutrients, the herbs, the vitamins, those things that are going to support your liver detoxification channels, your lungs, your lymphatic system, your colon. You want to be detoxing on a regular basis. And I'll get into what you need to be eating and the supplements you need to be taking in order to detox. But it really starts with limiting your exposure. Now, I also want to mention, it's really interesting, a lot of questions and a lot of, I would say, there's been a lot of controversy around what causes autism. And what I found in my years and years of research of reading thousands of medical journals, and by the way, being a practitioner, and I want to say something, I have had it in my practice. I'll never forget this. I had a child come into my practice once who was around 1 year old and was just completely functioning normally. They were almost 2. And they went to their pediatrician and they got their yearly, I can't say it because I don't know if this will be banned, something into their arm. And afterwards, the child, you could see a complete difference in their interactions and what was going on neurologically with the child. And they were later on diagnosed with autism. And that was a point in time where, as a practitioner, I was able to actually see firsthand where something happened to that child, something that increased their toxic burden, and something changed immediately in them in terms of the way that their brain and body were functioning. And so there absolutely are things that happen, but that's not the only thing, okay, in terms of that can cause autism. I think that when I look at the medical journals, we see heavy metal toxicity, things that can happen before birth in the womb. There are things that can happen very early on after pregnancy, like I believe antibiotic drugs. When you look at the use of antibiotic drugs by the parent or when the child is younger, you're depleting good bacteria. You are taking away part of the child's immune defense and really causing this inflammatory process that's then going to affect the blood-brain barrier and the brain itself that I think can increase the risk. So I think everything from medications like acetaminophen to antibiotic drugs to heavy metals, whether that's before birth or after birth and the exposure there, they all contribute to this condition. And of course, genetics play some role as well, but I think these environmental factors are even bigger and more causative when it comes to what is causing autism. So I want to walk you through other things you need to be aware of to reduce your exposure and that of your kids. The first one is I want to talk about mercury and go through some of these heavy metals. Mercury is found in certain fish. The greatest source is dental amalgams, and it's found in some vaccines. Risks of high mercury levels are linked to neurological conditions, fatigue, and immune dysfunction. And there is a picture here, which, by the way, fish is probably the least of your worries if you have dental amalgams or, again, your pediatrician is increasing your toxic burden with the way that they're treating you. But again, I think if you do want to know about the best and worst fish, typically it's this rule. If it's a very large fish, it tends to have more mercury. So especially things like swordfish and sharks and tilefish, large tuna, large grouper, those sort of very large fish, they tend to have higher levels of mercury. The medium-sized fish like bass and cod and halibut and tuna and snapper and mahi-mahi have sort of, a moderate amount. And then the lowest tend to be sardines and anchovies, those little baby, those are the lowest. So again, the smaller fish have less. And then salmon, generally speaking, like sockeye salmon, king salmon, have about the lowest levels of mercury. And this is why I'm a big proponent of salmon, also of North Atlantic mackerel. Mackerel is an amazing fish for omega-3 fatty acids. So again, the top 3 you're going to want to try and get are salmon, sardines, and mackerel in order to really load up on those omega-3 fatty acids. But you got to be conscious here of eating a lot of large fish, especially when you're pregnant, and especially if you're exposing your kids to some of these. Now, there actually are some foods you can eat that will help bind to and lower your mercury and heavy metal exposure if you're consuming fish. So for instance, in Japan, when they're eating sushi, they almost always eat seaweed with it. Seaweed, whether it be spirulina, chlorella, kelp, nori, these seaweeds actually bind to heavy metals and help detoxify them of your body, which I think is a big part of why in the Japanese cuisine throughout history, they've consumed fish along with things that help detoxify their body from these heavy metals like seaweed. So that's something we'll get into in the end, is how you start to detoxify your body. And it's a really good idea if you're eating fish to take some chlorella or spirulina or some supplements with it that can help detoxify your body of heavy metals. Number 2 is aluminum. Aluminum has been linked to Alzheimer's disease. In fact, a medical study found that people with Alzheimer's disease have accumulation of aluminum in their brain and nervous system. Aluminum is found in antiperspirants, cookware, processed foods, and a number of other things. But again, I would say, people putting aluminum foil over their food. Again, as I mentioned, cookware, antiperspirants are the biggest villains there. Number 3 is lead. You're gonna find lead in older homes with lead-based paint and pipes. Also contaminated soil. One of the things RFK Jr. is focusing on doing is there are still areas of the country in older homes that have lead pipes, and it's poisoning their people. I'm not sure if you're aware of the ancient history of what caused Rome to fall. One of the beliefs there is that many of the people in Rome, they used lead pipes, started getting lead toxicity. And so many of the people there, you could read about this online, lead toxicity causing the fall of Rome because of all the neurological symptoms it was causing, and literally causing people to what they term go crazy because of all of their lead exposure. The other thing you're going to see with lead is it's found today in a lot of food products. I'll get into in a minute that lead has been found in very high amounts in many protein powders and foods as well. We'll get into that. Lead increases your risk of brain damage. It damages your kidneys, your nerve system, and is particularly damaging to children. Arsenic is another big one. It's found in groundwater, rice, apples. Many pesticides are very high in arsenic, and it's also being shipped in certain foods from other countries. For instance, many years ago, they found that if you're buying rice or apples that are non-organic from China, those foods have very high levels of arsenic. They're also finding this in non-organic chicken. Risks of arsenic are cancer, skin conditions, and heart disease. Another big one is cadmium. This is found in batteries, cigarettes. It's found in some food, and it weakens your bones and your kidneys. Now, I want to go into some of the other exposures here. We talked about environmental exposures. Pollution, pesticides, contaminated water. Again, this is why you should buy food organically or at your local farmer's market. Stay away from the pesticides. They contain heavy metals. We talked about the food sources, especially the fish, larger fish like swordfish, but also it's found even in rice and protein powders. There's been study after study in the past finding that many protein powders today contain heavy metals, especially arsenic, lead, and cadmium. And so you really want to make sure you're buying from a brand that uses organic, high quality ingredients. And plant-based protein tends to have much higher levels of heavy metals than most animal-based proteins as well. And so something you want to be conscious of and make sure the brand you're buying is been testing for heavy metals. Household products, we mentioned aluminum, cookware, cleaning supplies, antiperspirants, and of course, occupational exposure, nail salons, mechanics, dental practices. We had one of my best friends growing up. His father was a orthodontist and dentist, and he got mercury poisoning because he would drill out these mercury fillings, and he wasn't fully protected himself, and ended up getting mercury exposure, and it ruined his life. I mean, it was very, very toxic. So we see this with certain occupational exposures as well. If you're battling fatigue, brain fog, headaches, digestive issues, trouble sleeping, joint pain, or even unexplained skin problems, it could be your body's way of telling you it's carrying a toxic load. I've seen so many times with my patients hidden toxins like mold, heavy metals, and everyday chemicals silently building up in the body, wreaking havoc on their energy, digestion, hormones, and even brain health. Here's the good news. You don't have to guess what's causing these symptoms anymore. The Total Tox Burden Test from Vibrant Wellness gives you real answers so that you can find a practitioner that can help you create a personalized detox plan that works for you. This at-home test measures 87 key toxins, including 29 mold toxins, 20 heavy metals like mercury and lead, and 38 environmental chemicals found in everyday products. Plus, you can add PFA chemicals to evaluate forever chemicals. What I love about this test is that you can take it from the comfort of your own home, no lab draw required, no waiting in line, and results are processed in just 7 days. It's never been easier to uncover your body's toxic burden and create a personalized detox plan with your practitioner. Take control of your health today. Visit vibrant-wellness.com to learn more and start your journey toward feeling your best. Now, I want to walk you through the top symptoms and warning signs that you have heavy metal exposure. Number one, brain fog. This is caused by inflammation in the brain and nerve system. Number two, chronic fatigue. Heavy metals disrupt your body's mitochondrial function, leading to low energy levels, and heavy metals will take the place of cells of certain binding sites of minerals your body needs like iron and zinc in order to function properly. Number three, digestive issues. Metals like mercury and cadmium can irritate the gut lining, leading to bloating and leaky gut. Number four, headaches and migraines often are triggered by systemic inflammation. Number five, autoimmune conditions. Metals like mercury can trigger immune system dysregulation, contributing to conditions like Hashimoto's thyroiditis and rheumatoid arthritis. Number six, allergies and asthma. We know that heavy metals exacerbate respiratory issues. Number seven, night sweats. Heavy metals can disrupt hormonal balance, leading to unexplained sweating at night, especially between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. in the morning. If you keep waking up then, that is the time when your liver tends to be the strongest, doing the most cleansing. Number eight, chronic pain. And here's another big one, cancer. There's no doubt that heavy metal exposure increases your risk of cancer. And the number 10 is autism. And being on the autism spectrum disorder, heavy metals play a role. Here are things you can do to start to detoxify your body, reduce your risk, and start to heal. Number one, as I mentioned, limit your exposure. Get a filter for your drinking water. That's number one. Okay, drink clean water that gets rid of metals like fluoride and chemicals like chlorine and lead that is found oftentimes in our water supply. So get something to detoxify and cleanse your water. Switch from using any of the non-stick cookware or aluminum containers to using stainless steel and glass. Also choose natural, aluminum-free deodorants and cosmetics. Number two, dietary support. So remember, you want to do organic meat, wild-caught fish, grass-fed beef. And remember, the wild-caught fish should be ideally salmon and mackerel, or probably two of the best along with sardines. In addition to those wild organic meats, by the way, liver is amazing. Actually eating animal organs or taking glandular supplements. People believe that liver, for a time being, people used to ask me, well, Dr. Axe, isn't your liver a detoxifying organ? Is it bad to eat liver? No, liver has all of the nutrients you need to detoxify your own liver. So you really actually want to be eating and getting some good quality organic liver in your diet, or taking that as a supplement, those glandulars and organs. In addition to the wild organic meat and the bone broth and the organs, you also want to be doing a lot of vegetables, ideally steamed vegetables, green leafy vegetables. Make sure they're organic. You want to do some organic fruit, and you also want to be doing some high fiber foods that help cleanse your colon and your system. Things like flax seeds would be a good example. Pumpkin, apples would be great as well. Also, increasing your intake of certain nutrients like vitamin C and zinc can be helpful. And then doing more cruciferous vegetables. Cruciferous vegetables are high in compounds that are sulfurous that also detoxify heavy metals. And then there are certain supplements I really like, zeolites being one, and I'm going to get into the others here that I really like in just a minute. I also want to talk about a detox protocol. There is a study on infrared saunas supporting metal detoxification. You can also take binders that will actually bind to heavy metals in your body. One of my favorites, absolute favorites, is apple pectin. I also like bentonite clay. Now, many people use activated charcoal, and that's okay for a day or two. For instance, if you're going to go and get your silver mercury amalgam fillings out of your mouth, which everyone should. There's not a person that should have those in their mouth. You want to find a dentist that's known as a biological dentist that follows the DAMS protocol, where they are protecting you from exposure to the fumes when they remove those fillings. Now, when you get those fillings removed, you'll want to take activated charcoal or carbon the day before, the day of, and the day after. But what I like long-term more for general heavy metal detoxification is doing a little bit of bentonite clay with water, doing apple pectin, and doing a lot of fiber-rich foods on a daily basis, or even adding a good quality fiber like acacia or pumpkin or something like that to a smoothie in the morning. Also taking herbs that support liver and kidney detoxification like milk thistle and dandelion are great. And also it's great to take certain compounds like N-acetylcysteine, which support glutathione production, your body's master antioxidant, for liver detoxification. Now I want to go through some of the studies here on some of these compounds that help detoxify your body of heavy metals. The first one here is chlorella. Chlorella, there was a study published in 2021, and they found that chlorella detoxifies your body of cobalt, strontium, barium, thallium, and other heavy metals. And so it does detoxify heavy metals. Another study here on cilantro, this was a 2023 study, found that cilantro helps bind to heavy metals and stimulates liver function and detoxification. Another study was done on infrared sauna use. This was done in 2012. And they said this systematic review analyzed the excretion of heavy metals through sweat induced by sauna therapy. The study found that sweating can facilitate the elimination of arsenic, cadmium, lead, and mercury, supporting the use of saunas as therapeutic tool for detoxification. There's another study I found on cilantro and chlorella combined and those benefits for heavy metal detoxification, and more studies on infrared sauna use. Now, there's another one I really like here on herbs. This was a 2019 study published in the Journal of Herbal Medicine, and they found that numerous herbs stimulate your body detoxifying heavy metals, including garlic, milk thistle, cilantro, ginkgo biloba, and turmeric as being some of the best and most powerful at this. Now, I do want to mention one thing that can be very helpful for many people is testing for heavy metal toxicity. If you have major symptoms of brain fog, chronic fatigue syndrome, let's say maybe you had those silver fillings removed, and then, the next week or the next month, all of a sudden you came down with your symptoms. One of my close friends, Dr. Dan Pompa, he went and had his silver fillings removed. Well, they removed them incorrectly, and that's when he came down with chronic fatigue syndrome. So we see this frequently. I have a friend, and I truly believe one of the biggest reasons why he has brain cancer right now and is battling it is due to all the amalgam fillings in his mouth that contributed to this condition as well. And so it's important that if you have heavy metals, oftentimes you can simply do a urine test to test for these heavy metals. If you find a good functional medicine practitioner that can help order the test for you, and you can actually see your levels of mercury and lead and all the heavy metals you might be exposed to. And so that's a great test to do as well, is a heavy metal test to find out if you really do have heavy metal poisoning. Again, finding a good functional medicine practitioner can help you do that as well. Here's a reality. Chronic exposure to heavy metals, typically it doesn't happen overnight, though it can. For instance, if you're getting those fillings removed, typically it's a slow buildup in what researchers call the rain barrel effect, to where over time it's like, okay, you have, you had some heavy metals in the womb from passed down from your parents. You had antibiotics early on. You ate foods loaded with pesticides. You're using a conventional deodorant. You're drinking water that's non-filtered, that has fluoride and has lead in it. Right? These things add up year after year after year. And then finally, you come down with an issue like Alzheimer's or multiple sclerosis or chronic fatigue syndrome, and you can't figure out what happened. Well, again, the issue is it's been happening for years. It didn't happen overnight. And this is why you want to take action and start to protect yourself from heavy metal toxicity. Remember how we started though today? They found in twins that those kids, the one twin that had autism versus the one that didn't, the twin that had autism had much higher levels of lead in their teeth and lower levels of zinc and manganese. And when I've run my functional medicine practice and I've taken care of children with autism, one of the things that we always want to do, and we're very conscious of, is not only do we want to detoxify their body, we want to make sure that they are getting all the nutrients that they need, such as zinc and N-acetylcysteine and probiotics and other things that are going to help their body actually detoxify and repair on an ongoing basis. And so it's really, really important that you reduce your exposure, you take the right nutrients, you get the right foods in order to heal. And by addressing the exposure and detoxifying early, you can also prevent more serious conditions later on in life, which is what we want to do. Heavy metal toxicity might be the missing piece to your health puzzle that you've been trying to figure out for years. As I mentioned, brain fog, autoimmune disorders, MS, these sort of conditions often are caused by heavy metal toxicity. And if you found this video helpful, hey, do me a favor, subscribe, like, and help me share this. There are millions of people struggling with their health, and many of them don't know that they're exposing themselves to heavy metals on a regular basis, and they don't know how to properly detoxify at the cellular level. So I want to say thank you, all of you who are sharing this. Hey, thank you, all you subscribers are out there that are on mission with me to change the health of this world. Hey, let me know in the comment section what other topics you'd like to see me cover next. Also, let me know your thoughts around mercury, vaccines, children with autism, and some of the other things we talked about with heavy metal poisoning. Thanks so much for watching.